All right, I think we're live here. Well, doesn't have anybody in the lobby just yet, so I'm going to hold off. If you're watching this as replay, hello, I am Nathaniel Rutherford, the managing editor of RockyTopInsider.com here for the RTI postgame show. Oh, this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a great show. Let's talk about that huge win. Oh, all right, guys. Let's get some more people in this lobby before we really get going here. But Tennessee, and what I can only describe as the most fun game I've watched probably since 2016, I'd say. And I'd say it's going to be true for a lot of you. Got to be the most fun I've watched in a game for Tennessee since 2016. It kind of stress-free. I don't say stress-free, but not nearly as much stress in that second half as you're used to with Tennessee. Well, I don't even know where to start with this game because there's so much. Unlike last week where I didn't know where to start because of how just kind of disappointing and then just kind of how much controversy there was for that game. This time I don't know where to start because, wow, there's just a lot of good positivity to talk about here. All right, I'm getting this link posted and getting some more people to come in. Let me tweet it out. Y'all share this link too if you're watching this. Thank you all for coming in here and watching this post-game show. But if you want to share the link as well, just you can copy the URL and post it to Twitter, to Facebook, to wherever you want to. Be greatly appreciated, and I will get this going more. Like I said, once we get a few more people in here. All right. Here we go. I think that should be good enough. I'm going to put Twitter away for now. I'm going to put Facebook away for now. All right. Folks, let's do this thing. Shane Whitehead is already in here on the chat. We got a couple people already watching this live. Got a couple likes already on this, so thank you all so much for tuning in to the RTI postgame show. I am Nathaniel Rutherford, your managing editor of RockyTopInsider.com and your host for tonight's show, as always. Tennessee just comes out in the second half and just drops South Carolina into the ditch, just dumps a bunch of mud and dirt on them, buries them alive, 41-21. And it wasn't like it was just all the offense or all the defense. It was a complete domination from start to finish. Well, not from start, but I guess second half, but from complete domination in all three phases. I don't want to say start to finish. They only allowed 14 points, and both those touchdowns came right there in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the second quarter. Tennessee comes out in the second half, outscores South Carolina 24-0. They get a touchdown. They get 2 touchdowns on special teams. I don't know who had the better game, Juwan Jennings or Daniel Batuli. I mean, they both had. I don't know how you don't give Tennessee this week the SEC defensive and offensive players of the week, because Jennings and Batuli were absolute monsters. I wrote it in my post-game piece, said they both were playing like men possessed in this game. Batuli, 15 tackles, a tackle for loss, a pass breakup, the blocked punt, recovered it for a touchdown. Juwan Jennings, a career-high 174 receiving yards on 7 catches, 2 touchdowns, took several snaps as a Wildcat quarterback, finished with 18 rushing yards, so he was very close to a 200-yard all-purpose game. I mean, heck, you can maybe throw Marquez Callaway into consideration. He had 102 yards receiving a touchdown. He had a punt return for a touchdown. I mean, there are so many. Jarrett Garantano had his redemption game for the most part. Obviously, he left in the game a little earlier than a little early because he had that big hit on that Juwan Jennings touchdown pass that he threw. Was that the third quarter, I believe? Yeah, third quarter, when he threw that touchdown pass to Jennings, where they both took big hits on that play. JT Shrout came in, and after that point, he played well. He didn't have a great start to the game. Both quarterbacks didn't have a good start to the game. But man, once they really picked up and kind of got in a rhythm, got in a groove, this offense, Jim Chaney earned his paycheck tonight. I mean, he didn't obviously earn all of his $1.5 million in one night, but this was probably the best called offensive game I've seen from Tennessee. Probably since at some point in 2016, that Texas A&M game, even despite Tennessee turning the ball over so many times, that was a well-called game on offense for Tennessee in that game. So probably since that 2016 Texas A&M game, as far as just the calls. This was, I said this on Twitter, this is probably my favorite Jim Chaney game I've ever watched. And I can think back to games I saw, obviously within 2009, 10, 11, 12 at Tennessee, and some of the games he's done this year as well. This is my favorite game I've ever seen Jim Chaney call at Tennessee, and I don't know that one really comes close to it, honestly. I mean, I'm trying to think, and I can't think of one that really I would say was more entertaining, more fun, and resulted in a bigger win for Tennessee than this one. And not, obviously, South Carolina is not some juggernaut. They're not Georgia, they're not Florida, they're not Alabama. But this was a win when Tennessee, just like against Mississippi State, when they needed it most, they got the victory. Let me post one more time the link here to the post-game show on Twitter. Oops. All right. Tennessee in this game, if not for the kneel downs there at the end of the game, which, you'll take that because it's victory formation. You will absolutely take the kneel downs and then take the little hit you get on the kind of overall yardage there. Tennessee almost got 500 yards of offense in this game. They finished with 485 yards of offense, 7.1 yards per play, which is easily their best this season. I think it was their best against a Power 5 opponent since 2016 as well. They had a 7.4 or something like that against UTEP, which is a FBS team, but which I was back in 2000. Well, that was last year actually. But the offense today, like I said, 485 yards, 7.1 yards per play. Passing yards, you had Garantano and Shrout combined to go 18 of 30, 351 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers in this game, period, by Tennessee. They dominated the time of possession, 34 minutes, 28 seconds. Several of their drives are just eating minutes off the clock. You had a 4-minute drive in the first quarter that ended in the field goal. That 8-minute, 15-second drive that it should have got points for you, but ended in a turnover on downs right there at the goal line. You had a 3-minute, 12-second drive in the third quarter, a 4-minute, 19-second drive in the fourth quarter. I mean, you also had some quick strikes. I mean, you had several possessions that were right around the 2.5-minute mark for Tennessee too. But I mean, they did not let South Carolina sustain a drive. South Carolina's longest time in possession was 3 minutes and 27 seconds. That was on a 6-play, 9-yard drive in the second quarter. Their longest drive as far as plays ended up being their last one of the game, where it was a 14-play, 46-yard drive in the fourth quarter. And then that ended on turnover and downs because Tennessee's defense was just, at that point, they were just clicking. They were just rolling on all cylinders at that point, and did not let South Carolina do much of anything. I mean, you could argue, I mean, like I said, Dan Batua, I think, should get SEC Defensive Player of the Week, but, I mean, Darrell Taylor had a good game, too. That guy had, one of his Georgia and Kentucky performances from last season. Let me pull up his actual full stats here. Let me get those back in front of me. Hold on. Okay. He finished, Darrell Taylor did. Come on, computer. Come on. There we go. What is he here? He 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups. I mean, that's a really, really, really good game for him. All right, let's get to some of the interaction here on the chat. I haven't paid attention to you guys really yet. So let me pay attention. This is an update here from Jerry Pruitt. Jarrett Garantano has a broken bone in his wrist and will have surgery tomorrow. He may be out for a little bit. Goodness. Well, no. Then Pruitt says, will he be available next week? Pruitt said, sure. All right. I'll kind of talk about Garantano here more in a little bit, but some stuff for you guys here in the chat on YouTube here. Like I said, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you want to give us a like, that'd be fantastic. If you want to share this and get more people in here, that'd also be fantastic. Zuri Willis says, love the fire that Pruitt has had the last few games. Cheney wasn't afraid to open it up instead of playing it safe. Finally, utilizing the offensive weapons. Yeah, I think you've seen a change in offensive philosophy by Cheney and the coaches in general since the bye week. Obviously, the Mississippi State game is a little different. That game, I think they made the right call for going conservative. The defense was playing lights out that game. You weren't having great performances by your quarterbacks and just kind of telling them to manage the offense in those games. But I think the offensive play calling since the bye week, since that Georgia game coming out of the bye week, I think the offense has been called really well by Jim Cheney and by obviously his staff who helps him out with T. Martin and as a pass game coordinator, and everyone else that kind of helps him out with stuff. Shane Whitehead kind of echoed what Zuri said. I said, finally, I'm glad they finally opened up the offense this game. Zuri says, finally beat Muschamp. Yes. Goodwin, JG played within himself tonight. Was glad to see it. Hope the wrist isn't broken. Let's see. Justin Giles, looking at next year, good that Brandon Johnson get redshirted to go with Palmer because you'll miss JJ and Callaway. Yeah, I think it was obviously a smart move to get Brandon Johnson redshirted. You're bringing in Jalen Hyatt, Jimmy Callaway. If he sticks with Tennessee, I think he's going to play wide receiver, and at least initially. You also have Gerard Means, who you're redshirting this year. Probably, I don't know how many games he's played in. He wasn't dressed out for tonight's game. Ever expected a run ball? I Peter is being slow and it isn't liking all the stuff I'm trying to do here all at the same time. That'd be us on the Wi-Fi. Let me pull my phone off of my Wi-Fi here and put it on data. Here we go. Maybe that helps some. Well, maybe not. All right, here we go. What was I even saying? I don't remember what I was saying now. Oh, how many times Tennessee ran the ball versus how many times they threw it. Yeah. So Tennessee actually did run the ball more than they threw it. They ran it 38 times compared to 30 passes, so they still did what I thought they would in terms of running it more than throwing it. But they threw it a little bit more often and took more chances than I thought they would throwing it. But to Tennessee's credit, it wasn't like, with the exception of the pass to Marquez Kelly, that was kind of a throw it up and hope he makes a play, and he definitely did. Jennings was wide open on his 48-yard touchdown pass. That pass from Garantano to Jennings in the back of the end zone, that was kind of a heated up and let him make a play, but that was still it was a perfectly placed ball to where only Jennings was going to be able to catch it. Like I said, it was a little bit of a just throw it up there and see if Jennings can make a play. But he threw it to where if Jennings did make a play, no one else is going to. That was a perfect pass. Garantano, I will give him all the credit in the world for this game. I had written him off. I don't know who hadn't written him off, but most people at this point, as a Vol fan, had written. I said Vol really weird. As a Vol fan, had written him off at this point. They weren't expecting him to play very well at all if he played again in a game, and then most people were saying be done with him, but want to see him on the field ever again. I was one of them. I thought that, hey, I don't want to see Garantano play again. I don't think he's earned that. I think it's probably best if he just kind of sits and maybe it goes and transfers at the end of the season. I still think he probably will transfer at the end of the season, but that might have been his best game I've seen him play. He missed some play. He still missed some throws, and he still looked. He was not perfect in this game, but overall, that was. That to me, I think has to be the best game I've seen him play. Just kind of overall from the throws he did make, the plays he did make, the plays he didn't make. On the turnovers he didn't have, all this different stuff. To me, I think that's Gabby Garantano's best game I've seen him play. Unless I'm just, blatantly missing something. I'm pretty sure that, to me, that's the best game I've seen him play. Someone here asked about recruiting. Zuri asked about recruits. I think someone asked, how many recruits do we have in the game? Today, I know for a fact Tennessee had Amari Thomas from Memphis. Jay Hardy was in. I believe Tyler Barron was in. And you also had 4-star wide receiver Dayu Jones-Bell, who's committed to Alabama. So you had some big-time prospects in town. And that's just from football. That doesn't count basketball. You had Paolo Banchero and Kennedy Chandler, 2 5-stars in the 2021 class, who were both in for this game, too. I mean, it could not have gone any better for Tennessee from talking about a recruiting standpoint for what kind of game you had. I think, I could be seeing this wrong, but I think at one point when ESPN or SEC Network, was showing the crowd on, I'm trying to remember when that was. I think it might have been when Tennessee had South Carolina backed up at their own end zone at one of those times. We're talking about how loud Neyland Stadium was getting that in that game. I think when they painted the crowd once, I think they showed some of their recruits, and I'm pretty sure I saw. I could be wrong. I could 100% be wrong, but I'm a little certain here that I saw Paolo Banchero, the 5-star power forward, visiting for the basketball team. I'm pretty sure I saw him just being very engaged and very vocal. As a fan there, because I'm pretty sure they show recruits. I think I recognized his face. I could be totally wrong. I absolutely could be wrong, so I don't want to say it was him, but it certainly looked like him, and it looked like he was having a lot of fun for this game. I know Tennessee also had a few commitments in the house. I think Keyshawn Lawrence showed up. I think Harrison Bailey showed up. James Robinson was in town, who's one of the offensive guards. Kyrie Miller is another guy Tennessee had visiting, who's a big offensive lineman who Jim Chaney personally offered over the phone. I interviewed him. I remember what it was. It was 2-3 weeks ago, but I interviewed him and talking about his teammate is Ty Jordan, who's a combination of Tim Jordan and Ty Chandler's name, but it's Ty Jordan over in Mesquite, Texas, who Tennessee had been pursuing for a while. He committed to Texas, but Kyrie Miller's teammates with him. And he said when Ty was on his official visit to Tennessee back over the summer, he was FaceTiming him, and Tennessee's coaches told him at the time they're going to keep an eye on him and they're going to, keep recruiting him and stuff. And he was surprised because he wasn't expecting a big SEC school to do that. Well, they kept up with him, kept tabs on him, and then he got the offer over the phone, talking with Jim Chaney over the phone, and Chaney put him on speaker in the middle of a meeting with the other offensive staff and stuff, and gave him the offer. And they all would tell him how much they liked him and how much they were happy to give him the offer and stuff. So that kid, obviously, they want him, I think, and I think all the recruits there for tonight's game had a really good time. I'll just say this. Yeah, I know, Ariam, I need a little bit more of a better equipment. Trust me, I think my next purchase is actually going to be a better camera. So hopefully for next show, you'll have a little bit better video quality. Can't speak to I'm not sure what the camera will have as an audio output, but I hopefully will have just a better setup for you guys for the next time. So this will hopefully be the last time I'm just using the laptop here or the camera on the laptop. But I do appreciate all of you guys tuning in, even with the kind of lower quality stuff that I have here just set up on my own. But hopefully next time I'll have, like I said, some better equipment for you guys for next show. But Tennessee in this game, I know a lot of credit's been given the offense, and rightfully so, obviously. I think the offense played exceptionally well tonight, especially considering all the limitations they had, where you played 3 different guys at quarterback. Your starter was out. The guy who was rolling gets knocked out of the game, and then you had to go back to the redshirt freshman, who it was obvious that the coaching staff didn't trust a ton, but he still made some good plays, man. I mean, I was pretty impressed by some of the stuff he was doing. But the defense, I mentioned earlier special teams too, the defense and special teams both deserve a ton of credit. After that 75-yard score, Tennessee only gave up 2 more touchdowns the entire game. They held South Carolina to 58 yards of offense in the third quarter. I mean, they were putting on a show After that first big play, and especially in the second half, they held South Carolina to only 4.1 yards per play in the second half total. After that huge 75-yard play in the first quarter, they only actually allowed another 70 yards of offense by South Carolina the rest of that first quarter. Held them to 4.5 yards per play in the second quarter. In the third quarter, it was 3.9 yards per play. And then the fourth ended up being 4.2 because they got a little bit going there in that kind of last drive where that was, in kind of garbage time and stuff. Phew, man. That was just such a fun game. I haven't had that much fun watching a game in a while. Any word on the right injury? No, not that I heard of. I don't know. Pruitt was asked about Darnell. He was asked about some of the guys that got banged up in this game. He didn't know anything for certain, I don't believe, about Darnell Wright after this game. Let me go back and make sure. I'll pull up his quotes and make sure I'm right on that. But I don't think he knew anything for certain on Darnell Wright. Like he did say, as I mentioned earlier, he did say that Garantano is going to have surgery on his wrist, but he doesn't expect him to really miss any time. He thinks that he'll be available for next week. So that's an interesting note to have on Garantano. Okay, let me see. I'm going to see if I can find anything he said about Darnell Wright. I was listening to his press conference, obviously, and I don't remember him saying that he knew anything. He doesn't have an update on Darrell Taylor. Obviously, Darrell Taylor also left the game after taking a hit, and there were several guys. I mean, you had Darnell Wright leave, you had Wanya Morris leave, you had Darrell Taylor leave. Darrell Middleton obviously got ejected in the game. Let's see. I don't see anything about Wright. Yeah, I don't think he said anything about Darnell Wright. So I don't know. I don't really have an update for you on Darnell Wright, unfortunately. But I don't think he'll probably be missing very much game or very much action. I don't know. It seemed like to me, Wanya Morris actually looked like it was a worse injury for him, and he came back in the game. So we'll see about Darnell Wright. You never know. Justin Giles, wonder if everyone wants JG to transfer now. We could need him big time. I don't know that. I mean, that's a good point. JG, I mean, Mauer's not been rock solid. I think Mauer still, obviously, I think has a much higher ceiling than Garantano does. But there's a legit conversation to be had here about maybe a quarterback controversy or something like that with Tennessee. I don't know that there will be one. Garantano was asked about that post game, and he said that there is no quarterback controversy. Whoever's going to give us the best chance to win, if we win, that's fine. So I don't know that. I don't know. I think it's a conversation worth having later on this week, or tomorrow, Monday, whatever. Troy Lee Nugent said the no face mask call that changed our team. No doubt they played pissed after that. That missed face mask. Tennessee didn't just overcome South Carolina in this game. They legitimately overcame the referees and the officiating. Like I said last week, I'm not one that likes to just sit here and say, the referees did this, referees are against Tennessee. I don't think they were biased against Tennessee in this game. I think they made some really bad calls, and most of the bad calls ended up going against Tennessee. There were a couple you could say that went against South Carolina, but for the most part, Lord, there were some horrible calls against Tennessee in this game. You had the missed face mask. There was a couple times they missed pass interference. The targeting on Darrell Middleton. I don't know about that one. Drew Pruitt got a 15-yard penalty on himself after that one when he was arguing with the officials about it. There's another one that slipped my mind because a lot of the negative from this game has kind of slipped my mind after the way the second half went. No, he didn't play. Brian, no, Darnell Wright did not play again after the injury. I don't recall them showing. They showed him on the sideline at one point, but I don't recall really seeing him a whole lot after that. Yeah, still felt like the rest missed a lot of calls. Missouri, I agree with you. Thank you, Dustin, for the shout out and the praise there. Kevon Bennett, this is from Nelson, is turning into a baller. Yeah, I think. I'm going to pull up his stats. Kevon Bennett, he had a good game too. Like I said, Darrell Taylor and Daniel Batuli had a really good contest. Kevon Bennett didn't show up as much on the stat sheet. He had 3 tackles and 3 quarterback hurries. Actually, I remember he did show up in the stat sheet. He had the most quarterback hurries by far on the team. Taylor got both the sacks in this game, and then you also had DeAndre Johnson get a sack late. Didn't have any forced turnovers on defense, but that blocked punt, I think that should count. as a forced turnover. Tennessee also had a couple of times where they stopped South Carolina's offense to where they, it was a turnover on downs, which isn't a conventional turnover, but it is a turnover. I don't know who, to me, I don't know if you can't just choose one MVP or one player of the game from this game, in my opinion. Because you have Jerron Jennings on offense, who was really, really good. Dana Batuli on defense, Darrell Taylor on defense, but then you also have Marquez Callaway, who played really well. I mean, Garantano, I think, should get a mention in there for playing the way he did and kind of having the, like I said, his redemption game. I mean, like I said, everyone kind of had him out to dry. Everyone kind of had Garantano as dead in the water, and he comes out and plays, like I said, probably the best game of his career at Tennessee. Jordan, thank you for tuning in. Says new to the channel. Let me see. I'm trying to see if there's any more updates on Garantano or any other injured Vols. I don't see anything. But thank you, Jordan, for tuning in to your first time new to this channel. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, you should. But yeah, if y'all haven't subscribed, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. But to go back to the game, Tennessee, I was trying to talk about earlier Tennessee's defense. They held South Carolina's rushing attack, which I thought coming in was going to have a good game against Tennessee. They held South Carolina to 78 yards rushing, and it wasn't just because South Carolina didn't run the ball a whole lot, because they ran it 30 times in this game. Tavion Feaster had 19 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown. Mon Denson only had 7 carries for 12 yards and a touchdown. Tennessee held South Carolina to 2.6 yards per carry. And now some of that's a little skewed because some of those, they had several runs kind of in the goal line area there as well. But that, to me, was just as impressive as anything else Tennessee did in this game. The 78 yards rushing they held South Carolina to. Tennessee wasn't fantastic on the ground, but they did enough. There were 134 yards rushing, 38 carries, no touchdowns. But Ty Chandler, he was kind of the I won't say bell cow, because it wasn't like he was getting a ton of carries, but he was kind of the one that used the most in this game. 16 carries for 78 yards. Along with 15, he averaged almost 5 yards per carry. Jerron Jennings out of the Wildcat had 5 carries for 18 yards. Tim Jordan was a little disappointing, 8 carries for 17 yards. Garantano had a 13-yard run, there at the end of the first half. So I mean, take that with a grain of salt. But I was pleasantly surprised by Tennessee winning the rushing attack, or winning the rushing game of this one, with them doing as decent as they did running the ball, but really stopping South Carolina running the ball. That was the more impressive thing to me. Nelson said, I kind of feel bad for Corey Miller. He's a VFL on the South Carolina sidelines. Yeah, I still kind of keep in contact a little bit with Corey. I have a mutual friend. We both have a mutual friend, too, who we all just kind of keep in touch and stuff. And, yeah, I do feel bad about Corey. I mean, I'm sure deep down he's happy, but professionally, I can't imagine that he very much is right now. Thanks, Nelson, for subscribing. I appreciate that. Zuri says, after tonight, the rest of the schedule looks very winnable now. Let's go bowling. Yeah, I still would be a little surprised if Tennessee wins out, because I still think Missouri is a bad matchup. They play a lot better at home than they do on the road, and Tennessee's facing them in Missouri. But I would be a little surprised if Tennessee doesn't win every other game. I'd be a little surprised if they don't beat UAB, and they don't beat Kentucky, and if they don't beat this Vanderbilt team. Whew, Lord have mercy. But I think they will, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Shane says, if we play like tonight, every game is definitely winnable the rest of the season. Absolutely. If they play like tonight, they'll beat Missouri. They just will. I mean, I feel pretty confident saying that. Muschamp's teams always won the second half in the fourth quarter. We beat him at his own game. Absolutely. That's the one thing that stood out to me most about watching Will Muschamp games that Tennessee's played against him since his time at Florida. And from 2011 to 2014, and then obviously at South Carolina from 2016 to now, is that Tennessee would usually in those games fold in the second half, in the fourth quarter, and his Florida and his Gamecock teams would find ways to make plays, would find ways to win. I mean, I can't think of a game where that wasn't the case. In 2011, that one was a little different because that was a game against Florida where Tennessee, Justin Hunter got hurt. That kind of took the wind out of the sails. But in 2012, that was definitely the case at home. I remember being there as a student at that game, thinking, wow, Tennessee actually has a lead against Florida in the second half. This could be happening. And then, just 2 quick touchdowns by Florida, and it was over. 2013, also that one's a little different because that was the Nathan Peterman, the swamp fiasco. So that was a little different too. 2014, definitely they won the fourth quarter and second half of that game. In 2016 against South Carolina, they won the fourth quarter and second half of that game. In 2017, they won the second half in the fourth quarter. Last year, they definitely won because Tennessee was up 21-9 at the second half at one point. I think maybe at halftime or third quarter. I don't know what it was now, but they're up 21-9 at some point in that second half. And then South Carolina ends up winning that game. This one was a complete 180 of what you'd seen with Tennessee and Will Muschamp over the last 7 years, or 7 times they played them. Tennessee just dominated the second half. That to me, this second half performance by the Vols was the best second half I've seen Tennessee play. I mean, honestly, probably since the Florida 2016 game. I'm trying to think of a better second half that I've seen Tennessee play since then. If y'all can think of one, let me know in the chat. But I think in just trying to remember different games and stuff in the last 3-4 years, I think this is the best second half performance I've seen Tennessee have since they just came back and stomped Florida in the second half in 2016. I like I said, I'm struggling to think of another one that would compare. All right, let's talk about. I'm going to tweet out one more link for the show here, but thank you all for tuning in. For all of you who've left comments and stuff here so far, I mean, this is the most fun I've had watching a game in years. Because the Mississippi State game was fun because Tennessee won, but it wasn't like a fun game to watch. It was an ugly defensive struggle for the most part of that game. It was one that Tennessee just knew what they had and were just trying to control it and everything too. I mean, the win against Auburn last year was fun and it was exciting because that was unforeseen. But that one, even still, it was a little more stressful in the second half because Auburn was making a comeback and it was closer. This one was fun because it was just a blowout the second half. It was fun because it was more worry free. You weren't worried that here comes the collapse or here comes South Carolina. It was fun because it was just domination, and Tennessee hasn't dominated like that to close out a game in a while. I mean, it's been a long time. A couple more things here from you guys in the chat. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been one of our most viewed live shows so far. I mean, we've had a lot of people come back and kind of watch the replays of stuff, but actual live things, this has been one of the most. So thank you all so much for coming in and doing this. Brian Sargent says they can win out. Can't overlook UAB. Absolutely cannot overlook UAB. They're playing really well this season. Missouri is losing at Kentucky 22-0. Is that true? Missouri is losing at Kentucky 22-0? Holy cow, you are not lying. It is halftime, and they're losing 22-0. What happened in that game? So, I mean, I've obviously not been paying attention because I've been doing stuff for this game, but holy cow. It was nothing in the first quarter, and then Kentucky just poured it on the second quarter. My goodness. I see Lynn Bowden so I guess he's playing more quarterback again. I see he's had a big game so far, so has A.J. Rose. Lord have mercy. Missouri is just falling apart. Wow. Okay, well... Yeah, I mean, the schedule is looking a lot better for Tennessee. I think, to me, Kentucky is a little more worrying to me than they were a few weeks ago, but even still, it's a game Tennessee should win. I think, to me, I don't know about you guys, I just don't really worry a whole lot about Kentucky in football. Maybe it's me being cocky and arrogant, but, I mean, they've had one win in the last 7 years or so, 2 wins in the last, 30. So, I mean, I think Tennessee fans feel about Kentucky like Florida fans feel about Tennessee, or how Florida fans feel about Kentucky, to be honest. It's for poor Kentucky football. Anyway, some more stuff from you guys. Any words on how the prospects felt about tonight's win? Not yet. I'm going to try to catch up with a couple of them and see how they feel about it. Especially when I tried to talk to Kyrie Miller. I've already had a kind of relationship with him and have talked with him a few different times too. So I'm going to try to hear from him and see how the visit went for him. I would love to see if I can't. I'm going to hopefully the Vol recruiting report guys who we do the RTI and VR2 recruiting podcast with. I'm sure they will hear from Jay Hardy and Amari Thomas and maybe Tyler Barron because they have a lot of connections with the in-state kids. They also, they could hear from Keyshawn Lawrence too, or Harrison Bailey, because they get interviews from those guys a lot too. And those guys are both here too. Hit that like button, people. Thanks, Troy. Brian says I was shouting at work watching it. Yeah, if I were just being purely a fan for this game, I think I would have been doing the same thing. Mizzou must have found out they have a bowl ban. It just hasn't been officially announced. I do wonder that, but also I think for them too, Kelly Bryant's been hurt here in the last couple weeks. I think he's more hurt than they're letting on potentially. Vanny took the win out of Missouri. They must have. I think that's endearing him to Vol fans. I with that kind of passion, with the way he's doing it, and with the way he's sticking up for players, that is doing a lot for the way fans feel about him. Just 5 weeks ago, there were people talking about legitimately. We had conversations on here on the podcast stuff about what happens if Tennessee goes 2-7 or 2-6 or whatever. Should they consider firing Pruitt? Now we're to the point where the fans they're turning complete. The ones who are kind of sold off on him are starting to turn 180s on Pruitt and say, "No, wait a minute, maybe we're being too hasty here." I think this team has taken the attitude and the mentality of the coach, and I think also part of that's been a lot of the younger players have been. You've gotten some of the bad apples out. I'm not trying to say all the guys who've left and stuff have been cancers or anything like that, because they haven't. Maybe some have, but the majority of them who've left in the last couple of months or so, they haven't been cancers. They've just been they left for multiple reasons or playing time or whatever. But I think you're to the point now where most, if not all, I don't want to say all, but the vast majority of the guys in that locker room now, I think have bought in. And I think are feeling a lot better about themselves, about this team, about the direction that this program is heading. And who knows? We at this point last season, or at a certain point last season when Tennessee just beat Kentucky and had games against Missouri and Vanderbilt left, we were all having very similar kind of conversations about this right now. I want to see Tennessee close out this season strong. Tennessee peaked a little bit last year in October and early November because I thought they played well against South Carolina last year, then obviously beat, well, that Charlotte game was ugly, but they still got a win in that Charlotte game, and then beat Kentucky, and they obviously just tanked at the last part of the season there. I want to see them close out strong before I'm willing to, I won't say fully buy in, but before I'm willing to kind of make some bigger, bolder statements about this team. But the way they're playing right now, that this has been, these last 4 weeks for Tennessee football have been kind of what you expected Tennessee to look like and play like from the start of the season, with the amount of effort they've been giving, with the amount of just kind of execution they've had on both sides of the ball. Obviously, maybe not as much in that Georgia game, but even then, that was still a better performance than you saw against Florida, than you saw against BYU. So these last 4 weeks, this last month has been refreshing and reassuring, I think, to Vol fans quite a bit. Let's see. Who gets credit for the better quarterback play? I'm not sure what you mean. Are you asking which quarterback played better, which quarterback deserves more credit? I think Garantano, to me. I think Stroud did play well, and I think he played within himself, and it wasn't really until that big play to Callaway where he really kind of, I thought really had a really good game there, but he made some good throws before that too. I don't think really Stroud made a bad throw. I think Garantano made a couple of bad throws, but I'm absolutely willing to overlook all those because he had a really good game otherwise. I still think Garantano played better at quarterback, but I think both guys had good games. I think to me, that was one of the more surprising things was how good both guys played. Donald Mills says, also seeing glimpses of Tennessee football I grew up with, and it's a good thing. Yeah, I think even for me, a guy who my earliest memories of Tennessee football are the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. This feels, some of the stuff I saw today and some of the stuff I've seen the last couple weeks feels more reminiscent of those times. I'm not saying it's where Tennessee football is back to where it should be, because it's not. But some of the gang tackling and some of the effort from the offensive line, some of the effort from just some of the players in general, and the energy and the passion on the sidelines, that does feel different. That does feel better. Someone mentioned this earlier. I didn't really get a chance to talk about this. I want to talk about it more. But you guys, the fans, whether you were there, if you're watching this now, whether you were there or not, that the fan base deserves. I don't know how much. I don't know how to put it into words. This fan base deserves a ton of credit for everything. For one, for still going to games, but they deserve a ton of credit for making that environment outstanding. There was an announced attendance of 87,000 something there tonight. I think that's fairly accurate. But with that number, it's not really being close to being sold out in Neyland Stadium. That was still an extremely loud crowd. I mean, it felt, just watching on TV, you could tell that was very, very, very loud. And of course, 87,000 is still more than like a lot of schools have in their stadiums when it is actually sold out in those games, in those stadiums. So, I mean, that was a loud crowd. Could you imagine tonight's game if that had been a sellout crowd? Think back to Oklahoma in 2015. Think back to to Florida in 2016. Y'all as fans, you deserve a ton of credit, and you all deserved that victory. I mean, you guys you deserve the Mississippi State win. You deserve this win. If Tennessee gets to the bowl game, you deserve that too. There's some negatives and stuff I could bring up from this game. There's some stuff I could bring up and talk about, just whatever else. But I'm wanting to focus on the positive here because there hasn't been a lot of great positive stuff to focus on the last 3, 4, 10, 12 years for Tennessee football. You take it where you can get it. At this game, there are a ton of positives to talk about. So I'm going to definitely skew more positive, more, if you want to call me a sunshine pumper or whatever. I'm going to skew a little more of that because it's after a win. Or two, it's after a game where Tennessee they dominated the second half. There's no other way to put it. They dominated in all 3 phases of the game too. It wasn't just on offense. It wasn't just on defense. Tennessee got 2 special teams touchdowns, 3 sacks. They held South Carolina to 78 rushing yards. They totaled almost 500 yards of offense in this game. Had 3 touchdowns that were big plays. One a 19-yarder, one a 48-yarder, one a 55-yarder. Tennessee had 9 plays of 15 or more yards to the air and 4 plays of 10 or more yards on the ground. Before Neil Downs, Tennessee had run 65 plays. 23 of those 65 plays went for a first down or touchdown before those 3 kneel downs to end the game. Whew. It was a lot of fun for this game. Now, Donald says, also seeing glimpses of Tennessee. Oh, wait, wrong thing. And the improvement in the trenches is so evident. Yeah, the improvement on the offensive line has been very impressive. The defensive line's been playing better. They still aren't getting enough consistent pressure, not doing enough consistently, but they're doing a lot better than they were at the beginning of the year, that's for sure. Both lines of scrimmage are playing a lot better. I absolutely agree, Donald. Christos, I don't know how to say your last name. I'm not going to bother trying to say it because I will butcher it, and I don't want to do that to you. But Christos says, if we keep this up, the recruits will follow. Definitely agree. Shane says that Tennessee is definitely progressing week to week. Donald, yep, that JG dimed JJ in the face of pressure was big time. It absolutely was. Garantano made a lot of big plays tonight. He really did. He proved me. He proved a lot of people wrong. I mean, I was a big defender of him last year. I was a defender of him at the beginning of this season. I was off of him. I mean, I said as much in podcasts this week and different articles and stuff I wrote about the game this week. I thought JT Stroud should get the start. He did, and he played well too. But I just didn't think Garantano should really play much again, or unless they just absolutely had to have him out there. He proved me wrong, man. I mean, he had a really good game tonight. Donald also says the effort and the swarm on defense reminds him of the days under Chief. I mean, yeah, to an extent. They're still, not there from a depth standpoint. That's just like someone else said earlier. Keep doing this, and the recruits will come, and you'll get that depth, and you'll get the players you need on defense to be able to do more what you want to do. Thanks, Zuri, for tuning in. Sorry, I got to go, but thank you for tuning in for when you could. Nice to see Palmer finally getting involved. Yeah, and hello, Parker. Thanks for joining again here. But yeah, the Orion Knight, I agree with you. It was nice to see Josh Palmer get involved. He finished with 5 catches for 55 yards, and he had a couple of first down grabs. I mean, there were big pivotal grabs. He had a 22-yarder. I know he had another one that was like a 9-yard gain that he had for a first down. it was nice to see him get involved. I agree. You had, like I said, Jennings, obviously the big stat sheet stuffer: 7 catches, 174 yards, 2 scores. Marcus Callaway, 3 catches for 102 yards and a touchdown. Second time this season Tennessee has had that hasn't happened since in a game as a receiver. So that's big too. Like I said, Palmer 5 for 55. Tillman had 1 for 19, and then Tyler Bird had 1 for 5. He also had that negative 4 yard. They counted as a pass, like a little shovel forward to Princeton Fant, where that was the face mask call that didn't get called when Princeton Fant had the ball there. So I don't want to get too much. I don't want to get onto the officials a little bit too much in this one because, like I said, I'm trying to be more positive focused in this one. Man, the officiating was not just as bad in this game as it was the Alabama game, to be honest. It was not good. They missed plenty of calls in this game too. Christo said, I knew JG had it in him, just needed to get over the mental block. Jennings is the most aggressive receiver in the SEC, period. His yards after contact are insane. Yeah, most of the time, when you see a guy have a lot of yards after contact, it's because they're speedy guys who, catch a deep pass and then run it in for a touchdown and untouched, or they get a pass play on a screen pass or whatever, get a pass in the flat, make a guy miss, and they gain another 7-8 yards on a run. Jennings is doing this a lot of times by dragging guys down, by taking guys trying to tackle him bouncing off of them, or him just dragging guys with him. He did that on his 48-yard touchdown reception. I think he broke 3 tackles on that play, if I'm remembering all the hits he took in that one play. I mean, that dude doesn't know the word quit. I mean, he has endeared himself time and time as one of the fan favorites in Tennessee history. I mean, he's putting himself right up there. Obviously, he's on the same type of teams that the Al Wilsons and those guys were on, so he's not going to get and the Eric Berrys and whatnot, and the Inky Johnsons too, because of the things he's doing and how he's doing them in these games. The refs hate us. Let's figure that out. Yeah, it's better to get on the refs after W than a loss. I mean, that's a good point, Troy. I mean, it makes you sound a little petty or a little like you're making excuses, like we talking about after the Alabama game last week. But like I said, I'm just trying to focus more on the positives. So the officiating was horrible. I don't think there was like a necessary bias against Tennessee, but it was just bad. I'll just leave it at that. It was bad. Bring Mike back. If you want to know what Tadero there is talking about, or Tadero, is that how you say your name? You probably can't tell me unless you just say yes or no. We had a guy named Mike Gillespie who I'm buddies with. I've been friends with him on Twitter for a few years now, but I had him on as a special guest for an interview. One of our podcasts this week to talk about South Carolina. He covers South Carolina for ABC Columbia, and I knew heading into it. I hadn't had him on as a guest before. I'd had someone else who covers South Carolina as a news station on as a guest on the podcast before. But I knew Mike was a little bit of kind of a homer for the South Carolina. I didn't expect him to be kind of as much of a homer as he was, and he kind of came off as a little cocky in the interview that he did with us. And like I said, I don't have any ill will towards the guy. I like Mike, and I'll probably have him on again next year. And probably give him a little hard time about it. But I've had several people reach out to me and say, "Hey, you should bring Mike back on, and maybe let him take some live questions or whatever for another show." I mean, I could see if he'd agree to it. I would bet he wouldn't, but I can see if he'd agree to that. I think it'd be fun if he did. But he was very much made it sound like South Carolina was in a totally different world than Tennessee. That they would have no business losing to Tennessee. I think he may have used those exact words, if I remember correctly. I don't know, but he was pretty cocky about this game for the Gamecocks. I'm very curious what his thoughts are right now. Like I said, I like Mike, but I know I had a few people reach out to me after they listened to the interview and saying, "Now wait a minute, now wait just a second here." No one special says, "I wonder if the refs had cigars after last week's game with everyone else." Oh boy, yikes. Co-host and producer of that show, he was there getting all the video and stuff of Pruitt's press conference and all the players and stuff. So you'll see that here if you're on our YouTube channel, not just watching this video right now, watching this show right now, but if you go to our YouTube channel right now or later on or whenever, You'll see we have interviews, the media sessions after the Kelly Bryant touchdown. He threw it to Tyler Beatty, I think Tyler Beatty, who's actually a running back. So I wonder, that's what else you want to talk about. I'm willing to stay on here for a little bit longer. Bowden loses big time still to Missouri and to Vanderbilt to end the year. So I could be wrong. Maybe Tennessee fades down the stretch here in November. Because all the games are winnable, but they're still going to be tough games. It's still going to be a tough road contest against Missouri. It's still going to be a tough. Was it a road contest against Kentucky? No. Yeah, it's a road contest against Kentucky too. I think they play at home against UAB. I believe it's on the road against Kentucky. I think last year's game was at home. Yeah, last year's game was at home. So it'd be road, home UAB, road Kentucky, bye week, road Missouri, home for Vanderbilt. So you've got a 10-point victory over Mississippi State and then a 20-point victory over South Carolina. That is really good progress. That's something that last year you didn't have. You had the Kentucky win at home last year, and that was obviously it was a good win, and it was a top 10 win. It was a good win, and it was a top 10 win. We're gonna have a ton of stuff for you on RockyTopInsider.com. All kinds of stuff with videos from the players, from the coaches, analysis, some quotes and stuff they said as well. Analysis from the game and everything too. If not tonight, it'll be all day tomorrow too. So be on the lookout for that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Like this video if you haven't. Really appreciate all of you. All of you who left comments. The Orion Knight, Zuri, Parker, Shane, Donald, Christos, all of you, everyone. I'm going to Rocky Top Insider on all of those. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Mr_Rutherford. Rocky Top Insider is the website, free for everyone to go and check it out. And we appreciate all of you who do. We have podcasts, we do videos, we do a little everything. Thank you all so much. I'm gonna get off here. I'm Nathaniel Rutherford, the managing editor of RockyTopInsider.com. Thank you all for tuning in to another post-game show